ready and prepared for operations. All of this networked into a highly capable joint force for the future. To ensure an agile and ready force, we made a conscious choice not to maintain more force structure than we could afford to properly train and equip. The budget also seeks to retain the most flexible, versatile, and technologically advanced platforms that we will need for the future. That involves unmanned systems, satellites, submarines, helicopters, aircraft carriers, and fifth-generation aircraft. What we're looking at are multi-mission weaponry and technology that can support that kind of agile force. Striking the right balance between force structure and readiness is critical to our efforts to avoid a hollow force. And we'll continue to focus on this area to ensure that we make the right choices. In this budget, we plan to gradually resize the active Army to 490,000. That's down from present force level of 562,000. And the active Marine Corps will go to 182,000. That's down from 202,000. That transition will take place over the 5 years. We won't reach those numbers until 2017. This plan maintains, as I said, a very significant Army and Marine force. Both services are at larger levels than they were at prior to 9/11. They will be fundamentally reshaped by a decade of war. They will be far more lethal, battle-hardened, and ready. The changes to the size of our ground forces allowed us to examine the Air Force's airlift fleet. Our intensive review determined that we could reduce, streamline, and standardize our air fleet with minimal risk. So as you'll see, we are retiring some aging C-5As and C-130s, but we will maintain a very healthy airlift capability. We were also able to identify excess capabilities in tactical air forces. We currently have 60 Air Force tactical air squadrons, and the review determined that we could eliminate 6 of the 60, as well as 1 training squadron. None of that will impact our ability to dominate the skies. The Navy is protecting our highest priority and most flexible ships, such as the Arleigh Burke destroyers and the littoral combat ships. It will retire lower priority cruisers that have not been upgraded with ballistic missile defense capability or that require significant maintenance, as well as some combat logistics and fleet support ships. As we build this leaner and more agile force, we frankly need to also look at a department that is leaner and more agile as well. And for that reason, this budget seeks to reduce excess overhead, eliminate waste in this department, and improve business practices across the department. We've identified about $60 billion in savings over 5 years, on top of the substantial efficiency efforts that are already underway. This will involve areas such as aggressive and competitive contracting practices, better use of information technology, streamlining the staff, reductions in contract services, and better inventory management. As a result of all this, we will also need to look at facilities infrastructure, balancing overseas forward presence requirements with basing requirements back home. In this budget environment, we simply cannot sustain the infrastructure that is beyond our needs or our ability to maintain. Therefore, the President will request the Congress to authorize the use of the base realignment and closure process, so-called BRAC process, with the goal of identifying additional savings and implementing them as soon as possible. The second area, rebalancing our global posture and presence to emphasize the Asia-Pacific and Middle East areas. The budget protects and in some cases increases our investments in these critical areas. That requires an Air Force that is able to penetrate sophisticated enemy defenses and strike over long distances. So we will be funding the next generation bomber, and we will be sustaining the current bomber fleet. We are also moving ahead with our next generation aerial refueling tanker. The strategy also envisions a Navy and Marine Corps that is postured forward, bringing a stabilizing presence and combat power as needed, with an emphasis on these critical regions. The Marines will sustain their level of presence in the Pacific, and the budget supports enhanced presence and partnering opportunities with Australia and others, such as the Philippines. And in all of these cases, obviously, we will do this in a way that respects the sovereignty of the nations that we will be working with. It also provides the resources to forward station littoral combat ships in Singapore and a patrol craft in Bahrain. As I announced last weekend, sustaining our ability to project power in these regions will require maintaining the aircraft carrier fleet at 11 ships with 10 air wings, and maintaining our big deck amphibious fleet. Modernizing our submarine fleet will also be critical to our efforts to maintain maritime access in these vital regions of the world. In this budget, the Navy will invest in a design that will allow new Virginia-class submarines to be modified to carry more cruise missiles and develop an undersea conventional prompt strike option. Across the force, we will invest in upgraded sensors for aircraft, ships, and missiles, and the most advanced electronic warfare and communications capabilities. Meanwhile, the strategy requires the Army to return to a full-spectrum training, developing a versatile mix of capabilities. Developing a versatile mix of formations and equipment to succeed on land, including in environments where access will be contested. The Army will maintain its significant force structure in the Pacific, including on the Korean Peninsula, and will maintain an operationally responsive peacetime presence in the Middle East as well. The third area, in building innovative partnerships and strengthening our alliances throughout the world. This strategy envisions an Army that develops innovative approaches to presence and a partnership development that will ensure our continued engagement with allies and partners across the globe. For example, in Europe, while we're taking down 2 brigades, we will maintain 2 brigades, and in addition align a brigade combat team with each regional combat command. And we will increase our rotational deployments on the continent so that our forces have more opportunities to train and operate with their European counterparts. More broadly, the United States will continue to invest in our shared capabilities and responsibilities with NATO, responding to the alliance's most critical needs, such as increased ISR and ballistic missile defense capabilities. Elsewhere in the world, the gradual drawdown of the post-9/11 wars will provide more opportunities for special operations forces to assist and advise our partners in other regions. And we prioritize the most important programs for building partnership capacity. Fourth, we will ensure that we can quickly confront and defeat aggression from any adversary, anytime, anywhere. The strategic guidance reaffirmed that the United States must have the capability to fight more than one conflict at the same time. Still, the changing nature of conflict demands greater flexibility to shift and deploy forces to be able to fight and defeat any enemy anywhere. The strategic guidance recognizes that we're dealing with the changing realities of the world that we live in in the 21st century. We're not just facing conventional threats, we're also facing technological threats. And we have to be prepared to be able to leap ahead technologically in order to be able to confront those kinds of adversaries. This requires that we have the capability to defeat the enemy across a broad horizon of different conflicts. And the budget leverages, as a result of that, new concepts of operations and advances in space, cyberspace, special operations, long-range precision strike capabilities, and other capabilities as well to ensure that we can still confront and defeat multiple adversaries. The budget also affirms the importance of strategic deterrence and provides for all three legs of the nuclear triad: bombers, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and ballistic missile submarines. However, our review determined that we could achieve better cost control by delaying the next generation ballistic missile submarine for 2 years without harming the survivability of our nuclear deterrent. We are fully committed to a safe, secure, and effective deterrent to achieve national security objectives. And lastly, with regards to the key investments in technology and new capabilities, we have to retain a decisive technological edge. We have to retain the kind of leverage the lessons of recent conflicts have given us, and we need to stay ahead of the most lethal and disruptive threats that we're going to face in the future. That meant protecting or increasing investments in cyber capabilities, the ability to project power in denied areas, special operations forces, kind that we saw that conducted the bin Laden raid and the hostage rescue operation, homeland missile defense, and countering weapons of mass destruction. In order to protect vital investments for the future, we protected science and technology programs as well. At the same time, the strategic guidance recognizes the need to prioritize and distinguish urgent modernization needs from those that can be delayed, particularly in light of schedule and cost problems. We've made reasonable adjustments to a number of programs. Let me briefly mention the change with regards to the Joint Strike Fighter. It's a program that remains essential for the future of our superiority. We have to develop the next generation fighter, and we will. This department remains committed to the JSF program of record. But in this budget, what we've done is slowed the procurement to be able to complete more testing and allow for developmental changes before we buy in significant quantities. We want to make sure, before we go into full production, that we are ready. The force structure shifts I've outlined today entail some risks, to be sure. But to manage that risk, we will ensure that we can mobilize, surge, and adapt our force to meet the requirements of an uncertain future. To that end, the Army will retain more mid-level, mid-grade officers and NCOs. These are the guys who have the experience. And they will maintain them even as their overall strength decreases to ensure that we have the structure and experienced leaders necessary to regrow the force quickly if we have to. Another part of ensuring the ability to mobilize quickly will be retaining a capable, ready, and operational reserve component, leveraging 10 years of experience in war. Consequently, we are maintaining a strong Army Reserve and National Guard, and there will be no reductions in the Marine Corps Reserve. The Air Force will make balanced reductions in the Air National Guard consistent with reductions in both the active component and Air Force Reserve. And finally, the budget recognizes that a critical part of our ability to mobilize is a healthy industrial base. maintaining the vitality of the industrial base, and avoiding imposing unacceptable costs or